Welcome back to this special year-end edition of RFL, the battle over bridge safety, 5 years and counting. As many of you know by now, we started covering this story 5 years ago, back in 2006, when the issue of suicides on Hudson Valley bridges became a stunningly recurring tragedy. So far this hour, we have looked at our fight for call boxes, suicide prevention hotlines on the upper Hudson River bridges. We then moved to 2007 when pressure from RFL and you, our viewers, forced the New York State Bridge Authority to install those call boxes on 4 upriver bridges. Then we moved to 2008, when we turned our attention to one of the busiest and most suicide-plagued bridges in the country, the Tappan Zee. Unfortunately, we also saw leaders of the Thruway Authority, which control the TZ, unwilling to admit that call boxes installed more than 1.5 miles from the middle of the bridge, where the vast majority of people leaped to their deaths, simply made no sense. In fact, during the time that we pushed to have those phones moved mid-span, more people took their lives. 8 real people with real lives and real families, they jumped, 5 of the 8 succeeding. And so it all brings us into 2010 as the battle over bridge safety continues. These are their stories. The latest happened in January. 50-year-old George Crowan, a father of 3 from Rye, New York, jumped from the bridge and was grabbed by a man passing by who just stopped when he saw him on the edge. The man lost his grip and Crowan fell to his death. Seconds before, the man says Crowan changed his mind and he didn't want to jump. 2 weeks earlier, Army reservist Wolf Artistil from Spring Valley, New York, plunged to his death from the span. According to reports, the 22-year-old was scheduled to be deployed overseas in March. It took weeks to recover his body from the water, and during that time, his family told reporters they expected to find him alive because they say he never showed any signs of being unhappy or depressed. And then there was 38-year-old Annie Scripps Petrillo of Rybrook, New York, who, after spending the day with her sister and also showed no signs of depression, pulled her car over on the tap in September of 2009. She then climbed the railing and then jumped over the edge. 15 years before, her stepfather plunged to his death from the same span after killing her mother, famous newspaper heiress Anne Scripps Douglas. A month before Scripps' death, in August, a 62-year-old man from Stamford, Connecticut, drove to the bridge and jumped. An hour later, a boater found him alive, calling for help in the water 5 miles from the bridge. In July, the body of a 66-year-old woman from northern New Jersey was found by rescuers after reports say she jumped from mid-span. 33-year-old Sage Reisler, a mother and college administrator from Massachusetts, took her life in June. To this day, family members and co-workers are still trying to come to terms with her death. They say she always had a smile on her face and spent much of her free time working with charities and helping others. And within a 2-week time period starting in April, 2 people, a 25-year-old woman and a 28-year-old man, attempted to take their own lives by jumping from the span. Both somehow survived the 130-foot plunge, and they were rescued by members of the Tarrytown Fire Department. Now, one of the 5 people who did take their life from the Tappan Zee had suffered depression for years. She was a newspaper heiress, had money and social status. And while we believe that a call box at the center of the span may have prevented the young woman from taking that fatal plunge, we are not alone. Here again, reporter Regina Orsania and the story of one family's tragic loss.
Alex Scripps Morrell and her younger sister Annie were inseparable throughout their lives. The 2 sisters did everything together, even on the day last year when Annie decided to take her own life.
We went and had lunch, went and had manicures and pedicures, we were laughing. Then we went back to her house and we were just watching TV and just talking. Our friend came over. She seemed totally fine. And I left her house at 6, and then somebody said, the state police said somebody started to jump off the bridge at 7:50.
On September 24, 2009, the 38-year-old daughter of newspaper heiress Anne Scripps Douglas drove onto the Tappan Zee Bridge, got out of her car, climbed a railing, and jumped to her death. 15 years after Annie's stepfather, Scott, bludgeoned her mother to death and jumped from the very same span. Annie's sister, Alex, says this time around, the emotional pain for her was even more unbearable.
I have to be honest with you. This whole suicide thing is more devastating than my mother's murder. Because my mother didn't want to be murdered. And the fact that my sister killed herself, it's just 10 times worse. The pain is 10 times worse. I still wake up every morning. First thing I want to do is call my sister because we'd have coffee on the phone and talk every day. Obviously, I can't do that, and I just miss every stupid little things like going to the grocery store with her and walking the dogs and just talking to her. I just can't believe she did that.
But not everyone who goes to the Tappan Zee Bridge intending to jump goes through with it. In a few instances, a guardian angel who goes by the name of Ernie Feely has been there to save them. For the past 30 years, Feely has spent a lot of time on the tap, first as a tow truck driver and now as a maintenance supervisor for the Thruway Authority. The 54-year-old New Yorker has literally pulled 3 people back from the brink of death, but he was unable to save one man determined to end his own life.
And he was just leaning on his hood. And I said to him, "What's wrong with your car?" He goes, "Tell my brother the keys are on the seat." And I said, "Yeah, but what's wrong with your car?" And then he made a mad dash for the rail. And I grabbed him by his pants above his belt. But after you jump over the rail, when you come down, as my arm hit the rail, it opened like this, and I lost him. But I didn't realize he was thinking of jumping at all.
It must have been hard for you.
Yeah, that was hard. That made the second one even harder when I came up behind the girl, worried about what if I miss.
Feely was able to pull that girl back, but hasn't always been there to stop others from jumping. In the last year alone, 8 people have jumped from the Tappan Zee. 5 of them have died. And when you consider the last decade, more than 30 others have taken the fatal plunge from the span. Feely believes that sometimes all they need is someone or something to make them think twice about ending it all.
You just talk to them and try to mellow them out a little bit until you can get other people to help you, because you definitely don't like to be one-on-one with somebody who's on the other side of the rail unless you absolutely have to. The phones are worth every penny they put into them. One person uses that phone, it's worth it.
So it's definitely that human voice.
Well, like I said, if you're going, you're going. If you're not going and there's a phone out there with somebody to talk to, or we can get out there fast enough for you to talk to us, or one of my record drivers or a supervisor, sometimes that's all they need is somebody to talk to.
Alex Script Morrell believes if that kind of lifeline had been available on the center of the Tappan Zee Bridge, her sister Ann might still be alive.
You think if she would have called you at that moment or called a mental health professional, that somebody could have helped her? Do you think that it would have been another step that could have maybe prevented this?
I hope so. I don't know. I don't know what goes through someone's mind who wants to commit suicide, so I just wish there was more, there was a phone on the bridge. I wish there was a fence on the bridge. I wish something else was there to help her, because I couldn't.
Do you think that something like this in the future would prevent heartache like this for other families?
Yes. Because I know I'll never be the same again, ever. Never.
There is more to come as we continue our special presentation, The Battle Over Bridge Safety. When we come back, I take a trip to the Tappan Zee itself, and we're going to hear from some mental health professionals who agree it is time for the issue of suicide to shed its shroud of shame.
Mental health needs to be talked about and practiced, and serious dialogue about issues as much as any physical health condition.
That and more when the battle over bridge safety continues.